You are stupid, useless, a fool. You are fired. You can no longer work here again. Park all your belongings in this house and never come back again.
She fired the elderly Gateman in public, not knowing he owned the house and was her future father-in-law. She adjusted her sunglasses and fired the old Gateman in front of everyone. Not just any employee, but the quiet, gray-haired man who had opened that gate every single morning without complaint. She called him useless, old, replaceable. The neighbors watched. The drivers slowed down. Even the house staff froze. He didn't argue. He didn't beg. He simply removed his faded cap and looked at her with eyes that held a secret. She thought she was asserting authority. After all, she was about to marry the landlord's only son. Soon, this mansion would be hers. But what she didn't know was that the elderly Gateman wasn't just a worker. He was the owner of the house, and the father of the man who had just slipped a ring on her finger. He had chosen to dress simply, to observe quietly, to test the woman his son wanted to bring into their family. And now, the test was over. By nightfall, she won't just lose an employee, she might lose her fiancé, her wedding, her future, because the man she humiliated in public was the very man who held the keys to her forever. Before we continue this amazing story, please subscribe to this channel now, like this video and comment below where you are watching from, and what time it is in your country. Now let's see what happened next. She steps out of the SUV before the engine even dies, heels striking the hot pavement like warning shots. The afternoon sun hangs heavy over the compound, is bleaching the cream-colored walls and throwing long shadows across the iron gate. Delivery bikes idle. A gardener pauses mid-sweep. She slides her sunglasses down her nose and points straight at the elderly Gateman. Her voice slices through the air, sharp and loud, accusing him of incompetence. Heads turn from balconies. Phones tilt upward. What was supposed to be a normal day suddenly feels like a public execution. She walks closer, perfume mixing with the smell of diesel and dust, and repeats herself with more volume, more drama. She says he is too slow, too forgetful, too old to handle a simple gate. The words are not just complaints, they are performance. She wants witnesses. She wants the neighborhood to see who holds power now. The Gateman stands still, hands behind his back, shoulders slightly bent from age but not from fear. He looks at her steadily, and that calm, strangely calm, only fuels her anger. Why isn't he reacting? She gestures toward the road as if dismissing a stray animal, telling him to leave the property immediately. A housemaid near the staircase stiffens. A driver lowers his window halfway, pretending not to listen. The Gateman slowly removes his faded cap, revealing silver hair flattened by years of sun. He nods once. No apology, no defense, just a nod. That quiet response unsettles the moment. It feels wrong, too controlled, as if he knows something she doesn't. She folds her arms, convinced she has just proven something important. She believes authority must be loud to be respected. The mansion behind her gleams in the heat, tall and imposing, the symbol of her new life. She glances up at it with ownership already forming in her mind. Soon she will marry the landlord's only son. Soon this gate will open at her command. But as the old man turns away, his steady walk carries a strange dignity that refuses to shrink. He pauses at the edge of the compound and looks back, not with bitterness, not with anger, but with evaluation. His eyes scan her face carefully, almost memorizing it. A small breeze lifts the edge of his uniform shirt, and for a split second, the scene feels less like a dismissal and more like a verdict. She laughs under her breath, thinking she has won. The neighbors whisper. A camera zooms in from across the street, and somewhere inside that silence, a test quietly ends. She climbs the stairs triumphantly, ignoring the tension in the air. The gate clangs shut behind her, metal echoing like punctuation. She feels taller, stronger, untouchable. But beneath the applause of her own pride, something invisible shifts. The staff's eyes avoid hers. The driver keeps his distance. The compound no longer feels warm. It feels watchful. And she has no idea that the man she just fired holds more than a cap in his hand. He walks down the street slowly, blending into the hum of traffic, pulling a small phone from his pocket. His fingers move deliberately across the screen. The call connects. He says very little. Just enough. Across town, a young man in a tailored suit pauses mid-step as his expression changes. The afternoon heat suddenly feels heavier, because this was never just about a gate, and by nightfall, everything she thinks she owns may no longer belong to her. She stares at her reflection in the full-length mirror, adjusting the diamond ring until it catches the light just right. The stone flashes like proof that she made it. Proof that the years of cramped apartments, shared bathrooms, and whispered judgments are behind her. The mansion's polished floors gleam beneath her feet, cool and smooth, nothing like the cracked tiles she grew up with. She tilts her chin higher, practicing the posture of someone who belongs here. But beneath that polished surface, a small voice keeps asking one question. What if they still see where she came from? She scrolls through old photos on her phone, stopping at one taken years ago in front of a faded building with peeling paint. Her clothes were simple. Her smile was hopeful, not guarded. She quickly locks the screen, as if hiding evidence. She tells herself she deserves this upgrade. She earned it. Yet the fear lingers like humidity in the air. Fear that one wrong move could send her back to being invisible. So she overcompensates. She sharpens her tone. She corrects people quickly. She mistakes dominance for security. She walks through the house giving instructions that are slightly too loud, slightly too firm. A cleaner drops a cloth and apologizes twice. The cook nods nervously. She interprets their caution as respect. In her mind, softness equals weakness. She has spent too many years being underestimated. Now she refuses to look small. The gateman, in particular, irritated her. His slow movements felt like reminders of limitation. His age felt like stagnation. And she is determined to be associated with forward motion only. She remembers the first time she visited the mansion as a guest. The chandeliers shimmered like a different universe. She felt both dazzled and out of place. The other women at the dinner table wore quiet confidence like perfume. They spoke softly but carried weight. She mistook their calm for superiority. That night, she promised herself she would never appear unsure again. Never be the quiet girl at the edge of the room, so she learned to speak first, to speak louder, to control the temperature of every space she entered. She steps onto the balcony now, looking down at the gate where it all happened. The spot feels smaller from above, almost insignificant. She convinces herself it was necessary. Leaders make hard decisions. People need to know their place. That's how systems work. But the truth sneaks in when she least expects it. Why did she need an audience? Oh, why did she raise her voice instead of lowering it? Because somewhere deep down, she still fears being seen as the outsider. She picks up her phone to call her fiancé, wanting reassurance, wanting validation. It rings longer than usual. Her smile fades slightly. She tells herself he must be busy. He always supports her. He trusts her judgment. But a strange tension coils in her stomach, subtle but real. She replays the moment at the gate in her mind, editing it to make herself look justified. Yet the old man's calm nod keeps interrupting her memory like an unanswered riddle. She closes the balcony doors and leans against them, the air inside suddenly heavier than before. The mansion feels less like a trophy and more like a stage she hasn't fully earned. She brushes off the discomfort, but reminding herself she is about to marry into this life permanently. Nothing can change that. Nothing can shake her position now. But across town, a conversation is unfolding that may redefine what arrived truly means, and she has no idea she's already being weighed. He sits inside a modest sedan parked beneath a flowering almond tree, sunlight flickering across the windshield like restless thoughts. The faded Gateman uniform is neatly folded on the passenger seat beside him, cap resting on top as if it still carries weight. He exhales slowly, not in anger, not in humiliation, but in confirmation. The air smells of petrol and warm asphalt. Cars pass without noticing him. To them, he is invisible, but invisibility has always been his greatest advantage, and today it has revealed exactly what he needed to see. He adjusts his wristwatch, the metal catching a flash of gold beneath the steering wheel. The watch does not belong to a gateman's salary, neither does the calm in his posture. Years ago, he built the mansion brick by brick, investment by investment, refusing shortcuts, refusing noise. Wealth never impressed him. Character did. That is why he chose the uniform. Not as a disguise of poverty, but as a mirror. A mirror to reflect how people treat those they believe cannot repay them. He replays the afternoon in his mind, not focusing on the insults but on her eyes. There was no hesitation, no second thought, only performance. He had watched her for weeks before this, how she snapped at drivers who arrived a minute late, how she dismissed waiters with a flick of her fingers, how her laughter changed depending on who was listening. He had given her chances, small moments to choose grace. Each time she chose dominance instead. He leans back in his seat and remembers his late wife's voice, steady and wise, warning him years ago that beauty fades, but temperament echoes. He promised himself he would protect his son, not just from poverty, but from emotional storms disguised as love. That is why he never announced his presence when she visited. That is why he kept the gate himself most mornings, to observe, to listen, to feel the rhythm of her spirit without the distortion of status. He reaches for his phone again, scrolling through property documents stored in digital files. His name sits clearly on every deed. The compound, the land, the structure, his, not his son's, not hers, his. He had allowed his son to manage daily affairs as preparation for inheritance, but ownership remains with him. And inheritance is never automatic. It is earned through alignment with values. Today, alignment shattered in front of an audience. He steps out of the car briefly, stretching his legs, feeling the breeze brush against his shirt. There is no bitterness in his chest, only clarity. A test was given. A result was observed. Action will follow. He considers calling his son again, but pauses. This decision must not be fueled by anger. It must be anchored in principle. Because once spoken, it cannot be undone, and legacies are not built on impulse. He slides back into the driver's seat and starts the engine, the hum low and steady. The uniform remains folded beside him, no longer needed. By evening, roles will shift. Masks will drop. The same gate that witnessed humiliation will witness revelation. And when he walks back through it, not as a gateman, but as the owner, someone will finally understand that humility was never weakness. It was the quietest kind of power all along. A balcony door slides open across the street, and a woman in a silk robe leans forward, phone pressed to her ear, replaying what she just witnessed. Her voice drops into that familiar tone people use when news feels too sweet not to share. Down below, a delivery rider scrolls through his screen, while watching the short clip he secretly recorded. The sun begins to sink, turning the compound walls orange, but the heat hasn't cooled. It has only shifted, from weather to rumor, and rumors move faster than fire. A group of domestic staff gather near the back staircase, speaking in careful whispers. They describe her voice, her posture, the way she pointed at the old man as if he were disposable. Some shake their heads quietly. In a society where elders are respected almost instinctively, what she did feels heavier than simple arrogance. It feels like a crack in moral code. One housemaid sends the clip to a cousin. The cousin forwards it again. The circle widens. A notification pings inside a popular neighborhood WhatsApp group. The video appears without context, just the confrontation in full view. Comments begin stacking beneath it. Some defend her, claiming discipline is necessary. Most do not. Words like disrespectful and heartless appear repeatedly. Someone mentions that the old Gateman has worked there for years without complaint. Another questions why she needed an audience. Each comment chips at the polished image she worked so hard to maintain. A car slows as it passes the compound gate, passengers staring a second too long. Two teenagers across the street mimic the scene in exaggerated gestures, laughing nervously. The moment has escaped her control. It no longer belongs to the gate. It belongs to the community. And communities have long memories. By nightfall, people who have never met her will feel entitled to judge her character based on 90 seconds of footage. A relative calls her mother with concern disguised as curiosity. The tone is gentle, but the message is sharp. Are you aware of what your daughter did? Her mother feels embarrassment bloom like a bruise beneath the skin. Reputation is currency, especially when marriage into wealth is involved, and currency can devalue overnight. The weight of collective opinion begins pressing inward, tightening the air around the mansion. Inside her bedroom, she scrolls through her phone, unaware of the digital storm building around her name. She posts a filtered selfie, smiling, ring glinting under soft light. Within minutes, subtle comments appear beneath it. Cryptic emojis, indirect references to respect and humility. She frowns, sensing something off. The energy online feels different. Less admiration, more scrutiny, but she still does not connect the dots. Across town, the elderly man's phone vibrates again with forwarded clips of his own humiliation. He watches silently, not with anger but with final confirmation. The test he set in private has now become public evidence. The whispers are no longer whispers. They are verdicts forming in real time. And by the time she realizes the world is watching, it may already be too late to control the narrative. A ceiling fan spins slowly in a quiet study lined with dark wood shelves, stirring the scent of old books and polished leather. The elderly man sits behind a wide mahogany desk, no uniform now, just a crisp traditional outfit that fits him with effortless authority. The room is cool, controlled, far from the heat of the gate. A single lamp casts a golden circle over neatly arranged documents. He places his phone face down after watching the final forwarded clip. The humiliation is clear, but so is the answer he has been waiting for. He opens a drawer and pulls out a slim folder labeled with his son's name. Inside are estate plans, property deeds, and inheritance structures carefully drafted over years. Every page reflects discipline and sacrifice. He did not build this empire for display. He built it to secure stability for generations. And stability requires discernment. Marriage is not just romance in his eyes. It is merger, alignment, shared values. Today's incident was not about employment. It was about temperament under assumed power. He leans back, remembering when he first considered testing her. The idea came quietly after observing small inconsistencies, sharp tones masked as confidence, its impatience disguised as efficiency. He had seen charm when wealth was present and indifference when it was not. So he stepped into simplicity himself. He wore the uniform, opened the gate, carried out minor tasks, not to deceive maliciously, but to observe unfiltered behavior. He needed truth without performance. He closes his eyes briefly, replaying her words at the gate, the volume, the audience, the intention. Discipline could have been private. Correction could have been measured. Instead, she chose spectacle. That choice matters more than the act itself, because power does not corrupt, it reveals. And she revealed something he cannot ignore. His fingers tap the desk lightly, a quiet rhythm marking the end of evaluation and the beginning of consequence. He reaches for his phone and scrolls to his son's contact again. His thumb hovers for a second before pressing call. The line connects quickly this time. He does not shout. He does not accuse. His voice remains steady, calm, controlled. He speaks not of embarrassment but of principle, not of anger but of alignment. On the other end of the line, silence stretches longer than expected. The weight of his tone carries more impact than raised volume ever could. He stands and walks toward a large window overlooking the city skyline. Lights are beginning to flicker on across the horizon. From this height, traffic looks small, manageable, almost silent. He built this view from scratch, brick by brick, contract by contract, and he refuses to let arrogance dismantle what humility constructed. This is no longer a social incident. It is a crossroads for his family's future. He turns back toward the desk and straightens the documents neatly. A decision begins to solidify. Not rushed, not emotional, but firm. By sunset, the uniform will remain folded permanently. By evening, clarity will replace assumption. And when the truth steps through that same gate she controlled hours ago, it will not come with noise. It will come with authority. And the test she never knew she was taking will officially be graded. He steps out of a glass office tower into the fading light, loosening his tie as traffic hums below like distant static. His phone is still warm from the call. His father's voice had been calm, too calm. Not angry, not emotional, just disappointed. That tone hits harder than shouting ever could. He stands still on the pavement while people brush past him, replaying every word in his mind. The city feels louder than usual, or maybe it's just his thoughts racing ahead of him. He walks toward his car but stops halfway, staring at his reflection in the tinted window. He sees a successful man, educated, composed, in control. But right now he feels like a son caught between two worlds. He has always trusted his father's judgment. The man rarely interferes in his choices, rarely questions his decisions. So if he is speaking now, it means something serious shifted, something irreversible, and he suddenly wonders what he missed. He scrolls through his phone and finds the video before she even sends it to him. The clip autoplays. He watches her stance, her raised voice, the crowd forming. He notices the gateman removing his cap. That gesture hits him differently now. His jaw tightens. He pauses the video, zooming in as if looking for context that will justify her. Maybe she was provoked. Or maybe something happened before recording started. But the footage feels complete, too complete. He exhales sharply and remembers small moments he once dismissed. How she complained about waiters taking too long, how she rolled her eyes at his aunt's outdated fashion, how she joked about old people moving too slow. He laughed it off at the time, called it stress, called it personality. Now those moments line up differently, forming a pattern he can no longer ignore, and the pattern feels heavier than love. He gets into his car but doesn't start the engine. Instead, he leans back and stares at the ceiling, feeling the weight of expectation press down. Marriage, in his family, is not casual. It is covenant, legacy, alignment of values. His father built everything from nothing. He knows the sacrifices behind every polished surface. He cannot ignore that history, but he also cannot pretend he doesn't love her. And love, right now, feels dangerously complicated. He starts the engine finally, the vibration grounding him slightly. He drives toward the mansion, headlights cutting through early evening haze. The road feels shorter than usual, as if urgency is compressing distance. He rehearses what he might say. He imagines her defending herself. He imagines apologizing on her behalf. He imagines choosing her anyway. Each scenario ends differently. None of them feels simple. He pulls into the compound and notices the gate already open, the space strangely quiet. No uniformed figure stands at attention. No familiar nod greets him. The air feels altered, tense, expectant. He steps out of the car slowly, scanning the courtyard as if something invisible is about to surface. And somewhere inside the house, she waits confidently, unaware that the conversation about their future has already begun without her. A black SUV rolls slowly toward the compound just as the sky begins to dim, headlights cutting across the gate she once stood beside like a spotlight returning to the scene of a crime. The engine hums low, controlled, deliberate. Staff who had been pretending to work drift subtly toward the entrance. Word has already spread that something unusual is happening. The air feels charged, like the second before a storm breaks. And when the driver steps out to open the back door, everyone straightens instinctively. He emerges without the uniform. He steps onto the pavement in a perfectly tailored traditional outfit, fabric crisp, posture upright, presence unmistakable. The same elderly man, but not the same image. Authority moves differently when it is not hiding. The evening breeze lifts the hem of his attire as he walks toward the gate, slowly, calmly, not looking at anyone directly. The security staff, temporary replacements, shift awkwardly. They sense hierarchy without being told, and the woman watching from the balcony feels her stomach drop. He pauses at the exact spot where she dismissed him hours earlier. He lifts his chin slightly, surveying the compound not as a worker but as an owner assessing his investment. A property manager steps forward quickly, carrying a leather folder thick with documents. Staff members lower their gazes. The transformation is not loud. It is surgical, precision replacing assumption. And when the folder opens to reveal stamped deeds bearing his full name, the truth lands heavier than any insult she delivered. She rushes downstairs, heels striking the marble with uneven rhythm. Her expression shifts from confusion to disbelief as she takes in the scene below. The staff are no longer frozen in fear. They are aligned in respect. Not toward her, toward him. She searches his face for anger but finds something worse. Calm clarity. The power she believed she possessed dissolves quietly in front of her. The gate she once controlled now frames her as the outsider. And for the first time, her confidence flickers. He gestures toward the house with one measured movement. No shouting, no humiliation, just documentation, presence, and silence doing the work. The property manager speaks softly, explaining ownership structures, investment portfolios, and legal authority. Each word tightens the atmosphere further. She feels the weight of invisible eyes pressing against her back, the neighbors, the staff, the memory of cameras. What felt like dominance hours ago now feels reckless, and there is no script to reverse this scene. Her fiancé steps forward from the shadows. His face carries conflict, loyalty pulling one way, love pulling the other. He looks between them, the space suddenly too small for all three of their expectations. She wants him to speak first, to defend her, to minimize what happened. But he remains quiet, absorbing the gravity of what is unfolding. Because this is no longer about embarrassment. It is about values, and values do not bend easily. The old man turns toward the gate once more. He rests his hand briefly against the iron bars, as if reclaiming something sacred. The sunset burns orange behind him, casting long shadows that stretch across the courtyard like lines being redrawn. Without raising his voice, without repeating her cruelty, he has shifted the entire power structure in one evening. And as silence settles over the compound, she finally understands. Karma does not shout. It simply rearranges who stands where. She stands at the top of the staircase, heart pounding like a drum in an empty hall. The engagement ring glints coldly in the fading sunlight, a symbol that now feels fragile, almost mocking. Every invitation she had planned, every dream she had whispered to herself in mirrors, suddenly seems suspended in midair. The walls of the mansion, once symbols of victory, now feel like witnesses to a misstep too large to ignore. Her fiancé's distance presses against her like the weight of the sky, silent but unyielding. He doesn't speak immediately. His hands rest lightly on the railing, but his posture has stiffened. His eyes avoid hers, scanning the courtyard below as if searching for the lesson that has already begun to unfold. The silence between them grows heavy, stretching longer with every second. It's not anger that lingers. It's disappointment. A disappointment rooted in principle, in observation, in subtle moments she never knew he noticed. And she realizes that love alone may no longer be enough to bridge the divide. She imagines explaining herself, rationalizing her actions, justifying the performance she thought was necessary. But each mental argument collapses under the truth she cannot escape. She cannot undo the spectacle. She cannot retract the words that echo in digital streams beyond the walls. Even if she bows, even if she apologizes, she cannot fully erase the impression she has left. And in that moment, the ring she once clutched tightly feels heavier than any metal she has ever held. Her fingers twist nervously around the fabric of her dress, the silk catching in her grip. The mansion, silent and vast, suddenly feels too large for her presence. The chandeliers glint overhead, reflecting not celebration but exposure. Every polished surface seems to magnify her insecurity. She remembers the small acts of impatience, the moments of disregard, the tiny humiliations she thought harmless. They now compile into a single narrative she cannot escape, and it terrifies her. Outside, the evening breeze rustles the compound gates, as carrying faint sounds of neighbors whispering and tires shifting down the street. Social judgment is no longer distant. It hovers in the corners, pressing in. The staff watches quietly, eyes darting between the couple. Even the loyal servants, accustomed to hierarchy, sense the shift. The house itself, her supposed sanctuary, now feels like a mirror reflecting not triumph, but exposure. Pride is no longer her shield. She imagines the ceremony she once dreamed of, the music, the flowers, the cheers of family and friends. But now those images are tinted with uncertainty. Can love survive a revelation of character this stark? Can trust endure when one partner has been revealed in such contrast to expectation? Questions press on her chest, leaving her breath shallow, heart quickening. The ring is no longer a reward. It is a test. And the answer may be out of reach. She steps forward hesitantly, feeling each polished marble step like a countdown. The man she loves watches her, unreadable, but the weight in his silence is unmistakable. Everything she believed was solid, the engagement, the wedding plans, the future she imagined, hangs by the thread of this one moment. And she knows, deep in her chest, that the choices she makes in the next few minutes may determine not only her marriage, but the very foundation of who she is allowed to become in this family. Her phone vibrates again and again, each notification a drumbeat of judgment. Messages from relatives, distant friends, and even colleagues flood in, some polite, some biting. Screens glow in the dim light of the mansion, reflecting her worried eyes. Each message is a reminder. The incident is no longer private. It has escaped the walls, untraveled down streets, over fences, into living rooms and coffee tables. The hum of social media feels louder than the evening cicadas. The world, it seems, has paused to witness her fall. She scrolls through endless forwarded clips, captions edited by strangers to amplify her humiliation. The laughter, the whispers, the incredulous emojis, they feel like small knives pressed against her chest. Pride, once unshakable, begins to crack. Each replay makes the mistake feel larger, the consequences heavier. Even the staff, normally quiet and compliant, avoid her gaze. The compound, her sanctuary, now feels like a courtroom with unseen jurors ready to render verdicts she cannot appeal. Her mother calls, her voice gentle but layered with unspoken concern. "Are you aware of what people are saying?" she asks. The question is loaded. The cultural weight of respect for elders, for humility, presses on her like a stone. Pride had blinded her, made her think she was untouchable, but in the reflections of others, she sees how fragile her reputation truly is. And for the first time, she feels the sting of being exposed, not just to family, but to an entire community. She checks her social feeds again, seeing debates flare over her actions. Some defend discipline, many condemn cruelty. She notices comments that say, "Character is revealed when no one is watching," and the words echo inside her skull. The house feels colder, emptier. The chandeliers seem harsher now, the polished marble less like luxury and more like a mirror highlighting every flaw. Humiliation has a texture, she realizes, and it scratches beneath the skin. She paces the hallways, my heels clicking like a warning she cannot control. Every echo is a reminder that silence offers no escape. Voices, imagined and real, crowd around her, neighbors, staff, distant cousins. Each one questions not her wealth, not her beauty, but her judgment, her empathy, her heart. And in that realization, fear blooms, a fear that reputation, carefully built, can crumble faster than status ever rises. The mansion, once a symbol of accomplishment, now feels like a cage. Every room, every corridor, every framed photo of success reminds her of the gap between image and character. She remembers the gateman's quiet nod, the stillness that held more power than her performance. The contrast stings sharply, authority misused, humility ignored. The lesson she refused to learn earlier now presses against her chest like a weight she cannot lift alone. She sits by the balcony, staring at the gate below where everything shifted. The evening air carries distant murmurs, neighbors still talking, cars still slowing. The compound's silence is no longer her ally. It hums with judgment she cannot control. Pride has been replaced with panic, and deep down she realizes that the lesson she has been taught is irreversible. The world notices what you refuse to honor, and sometimes public shame is the only mirror capable of revealing the truth about yourself. She stands before the grand mirror in her bedroom, the city lights reflecting off the glass like judgment staring back at her. The ring on her finger feels heavier than metal, pressing into her thoughts with unrelenting weight. Pride whispers excuses. He was just a staff member. She had deadlines. People are overreacting. But another, the quieter voice urges honesty. She realizes that her arrogance wasn't just seen, it was recorded, replayed, dissected, and forwarded. Every justification feels thin, hollow, and for the first time, she wonders if humility might be stronger than dominance. Her heels click against the polished marble as she paces, back and forth, each step echoing like a heartbeat, counting down the moments before a decision. The room feels smaller, confined by the consequences of her actions. She pictures the gateman's calm eyes, the silence that held power far beyond his uniform. His dignity contrasts sharply with her fear. Every choice she makes now, defensive or contrite, will determine not only the engagement, but the respect she can command, even within these walls. She thinks of her fiancé, the man whose love she assumed would forgive everything. She imagines the disappointment in his eyes, the subtle pull of loyalty to family values. Can he overlook arrogance that she failed to conceal? Can love alone bridge the gap between public shame and private principle? The questions swirl around her, pressing her to make a choice, to bend without breaking, to apologize without losing herself. Pride fights for dominance, conscience fights for redemption. She steps onto the balcony, the wind brushing her face like a whisper of warning. The streets below are quiet now, but the echoes of cameras and whispered gossip linger. Neighbors will continue to talk. The world will continue to judge. The question is not whether she can control perception, it is whether she can confront truth. To apologize sincerely requires more than words. It requires recognition of failure, acceptance of consequences, and willingness to change. It is terrifying because it strips away performance and exposes raw vulnerability. She moves back inside and sits at the edge of her bed, hands clasped around the ring. She replays the afternoon repeatedly, each detail sharper in hindsight. The raised voice, the pointing finger, the laughter of onlookers she barely noticed. She can almost hear the murmurs now. Character is revealed in how you treat those beneath you. Each repetition tightens her chest. Pride had protected her illusions. Humility demands courage. And courage, she realizes, comes with risk. Her phone buzzes again, messages of judgment, advice, concern. She reads each one, not skimming, letting each word settle like weight in her stomach. She thinks of the potential apology, the walk down the staircase, the genuine admission of wrongdoing. Would it be enough? Could it undo humiliation? Perhaps not. But ignoring the choice would guarantee regret, the kind that lingers longer than public scorn. She knows the longer she hesitates, the more fragile her future becomes. She rises, taking a deep breath, feeling the pulse of the evening press against her skin. Pride screams to deny, to blame circumstances, to deflect. Conscience whispers to act, to own, to seek forgiveness before damage becomes permanent. The mansion, the ring, the engagement, all are suspended in balance. And she realizes, tonight, she must choose between standing arrogantly alone or kneeling with honesty, risking vulnerability but opening the possibility for redemption, for love, and for a future rebuilt on character rather than performance. The patriarch sits behind his polished desk, the evening light filtering through tall windows and casting long shadows across the room. The mansion feels quiet, almost sacred, as if it is holding its breath for the decision about to unfold. He leans back, fingers steepled, eyes scanning the documents that lay in front of him. Ownership, inheritance, responsibility, they all converge in this single moment, yet none of it feels purely legal. This is moral authority, character, legacy. What he chooses now will echo far beyond contracts or walls. He recalls the years spent building the estate, brick by brick, lesson by lesson. Discipline and humility were never optional. They were the foundation. He considers his son, the young man standing between love and duty. His heart aches with the knowledge that obedience is easy, but respect must be earned. Wealth can be inherited, but values cannot. And today the test of those values has been revealed in plain sight, measured in behavior, in attitude, in silence, in the choices of a woman he hoped would join their family. He thinks of the woman at the staircase, the fiancée who believed she had power, and yet faltered when humility mattered most. Should he protect his son's immediate happiness and overlook the lapse? Should he teach a lesson that may bruise pride but solidify character? He understands the stakes. Relationships are delicate, but legacy is eternal. He feels the weight of history pressing on his shoulders, the weight of the example he will set, the traditions he will uphold, the cautionary tale he might impart. The phone rests silently on the desk, unopened for now. No calls, no interference, no influence. Decisions of this kind are personal. They are quiet, deliberate, and final. He contemplates the ripple effect. One lesson delivered poorly can cause resentment, but one delivered with timing and clarity becomes transformative. This is not about punishment. It is about alignment, about molding a family not only wealthy in assets, but rich in integrity, wisdom, and respect. He stands and walks slowly to the window, looking out over the compound where life moves oblivious to the decisions inside. Staff are finishing their tasks, unaware of the pivotal moment just concluded. The gates, the walls, the floors, all symbols of stability and control. Yet it is human behavior, not architecture, that truly sustains legacy. He realizes that the choice he makes now will define more than an engagement. It will set the moral compass for generations to come, shaping how power and respect intertwine in his family. He returns to his desk, placing hands over the papers as if to physically weigh right against wrong. Humility and pride, forgiveness and principle, love and character. The scales tip slowly, deliberately. He makes notes, a plan, a path forward, not to dictate life, but to guide it. The lesson must be clear, the consequences visible, and the potential for redemption genuine. In every measure, he is thinking not of revenge, but of wisdom, not of anger, but of shaping the foundation of a household. Finally, he lifts his head, eyes meeting the space where the gates will soon swing open again. The decision is made. The message will be delivered. The test concluded. He knows it will not be easy for her, nor should it be. But he also knows that character forged under pressure, humility earned through reflection, and integrity tested through discomfort are the cornerstones of true legacy. Tonight, the family's future will be defined, not by wealth but by values, and that choice will resonate far beyond this evening, long after voices have quieted and gates have closed. The courtyard is silent now, the air heavy with expectation. The gate, once a mere entry point, has become a symbol of choices made, of respect given or denied, of power wielded and revealed. She stands near it, heart hammering, palms slick against her dress. Every polished tile, every iron bar reflects back the moment she thought she controlled. But control is an illusion. Tonight, the balance of fate hangs on a single decision, one that will determine whether doors remain closed or swing wide open. From the mansion's shadowed hallway, he steps forward, the elderly man who wore humility like armor now exuding authority. His eyes meet hers calmly, without mockery, without overt judgment. The staff, the neighbors, even the distant drivers who caught glimpses earlier, all seem to hold their breath. Every movement he makes is deliberate, measured, teaching a lesson louder than words could. And in that silence, she feels the weight of her arrogance, heavier than any ring, heavier than the mansion itself. She swallows hard, recalling the whispers, the laughter, the digital clips that have traveled farther than she ever imagined. The world has already passed judgment, but the one verdict that matters, the one that can reshape her life, is his. Pride screams to defend, to justify, to protect the image she has clung to. Humility whispers the truth. She misjudged, she hurt, she failed a test she never knew existed. Every second stretches longer, and the gate stands as the dividing line between redemption and permanent consequence. He reaches the gate and pauses, hand brushing the iron lightly, as if acknowledging both the mistake and the opportunity for correction. He does not close it. He does not slam it in anger. The power he holds does not need noise. Its quiet gravity presses into her chest, forcing her to confront herself fully. The choice is hers: retreat behind pride or step forward into accountability, risking vulnerability for the chance at forgiveness. She lowers her gaze, fingers tightening around the engagement ring. The mansion feels enormous, the shadows stretching like reminders of her missteps. Yet somewhere deep inside, a small ember flickers, a hope that she can repair, apologize, and align with the family she aspires to join. It will not be easy. Her pride must bend. Her ego must kneel. The steps to the gate feel longer than the miles she has ever traveled, each one heavy with consequence and anticipation. Her hand hovers over the latch, trembling. Outside, the world continues its hum, unaware of the personal drama contained within these walls. Inside, time slows, compresses, presses forward. And in that moment, she understands the truth he has been testing all along. Status, wealth, beauty, none of it holds weight without respect. None of it guarantees acceptance. A character is revealed not in grand gestures, but in how one treats those who cannot repay them, who cannot influence them, who can only be seen or ignored. Finally, she opens the gate. The sound is soft, but it resonates like a signal. Humility can restore access, respect can rebuild bridges, and redemption, though hard-earned, remains possible. The elderly man nods once, imperceptibly, yet profoundly. The future is no longer predetermined by arrogance, but by choice, reflection, and courage. And as the gate swings fully open, she realizes a final truth. The person you look down on today may very well be holding the keys to your tomorrow. The door to her future, both literal and metaphorical, now waits, ready if she is ready to step through.